Welcome to Dreamwalk, and we would like to welcome Chiitani Johnson, Martina Johnson, and the one and only Michael Ben.
Hi.
So what we just want to give you guys a chance to do is A, fight the power, B, share your story, Chiitani, in regards to CSUS and being stung by the hornet of injustice. Oh, yes.
It got you right in a tender spot, I guess.
This is not going to be your last interview on National Public Radio.
So we're going to have like 45 minutes of her laughing.
I'm not going to whisper at you, and I'm not going to apologize for white people. We're going to let you explain your story once you get your stuff together. Mom, check your daughter.
No, it's her fault.
Don't
It
look at
always
her.
is.
Oh, I'm a good mom.
You are. She's in the corner like this. I'm a good mom. I'm a good mom. I'm a good mom.
Okay. We're fighting the patriarchy here together. It'll be okay.
Yay. So tell us, you had a recent experience at Sac State in history class. So just break it down.
And you're all over
Start
Indian
to
country
finish.
today. You're like famous.
Yeah.
Okay. So in class, it started on Wednesday. It's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. So we meet 3 times a week, and it's a 50-minute lecture class. And we were in class the second day of school, which
Of the
was that
semester.
Wednesday. Yeah. So the professor said, I don't like to use the word genocide because it implies that it was done on purpose. And natives were primarily wiped out by European diseases. And immediately a whole bunch of red flags are going off in my head, because that's not true. And I'm looking around at the class and everybody's kind of, like nodding along, or they're yawning, or they're not paying attention. And I was really excited about this class because I thought he was going to be a good guy. But he said genocide I don't like to use that word because it was something that was done on purpose. And I was really upset by that. I was really affected by it because I've done my own research. I've read books and I've been told familial history. So I absolutely know this is not a true statement. But I knew I immediately was too emotional to be handling that situation.
Well, yeah, then you look like a crazy, angry
Yeah, you look like a
woman.
crazy Indian lady, and she's angry, and
Of course they are. Right.
And I was just like, I'm not going to be taken seriously if I stand up right now.
That's
because
smart.
I'm too mad. And this is something she's been teaching me. My mom has been telling me about for a while. It's like, you have to, when you go into these things, you have to assume that even if you're 100% right, even if you do all the research there is in the world, even if you have a doctorate in this stuff, the people who are denying this kind of truth are the ones that are comfortable with their power, and they're not going to listen to you. So as much as it hurts, you have to be the grown-up. You have to be the one that takes the high road. You have to be the one that's more mature. You have to be the one who goes and does extra research, because no matter what, you're going to be the one that has to come back and fight this all over again the next day and do it better than you did the last time, and do it every single day until you're not a person anymore. And so it's like, well, all right. So if I stand up right now, this guy's not going to listen to me. If I stand up right now, I'm going to be too emotional, and I'm not going to be taken seriously if I take another stand at the rest of the semester. So I went home. I had recently got in touch with some people on Twitter, which sounds ridiculous, but
No, social media
it's
is
such
a
a
way
good
to
networking.
connect us and to get information out,
Yes.
right or wrong.
yes. And I got in touch with a bunch of Native scholars, a bunch of Native people who have doctorates and things like that, and who have been in contact with me, and who've been spreading information and just, getting the word out about things like this. And I reached out to people and I said, hey, this is what my professor said today in class, and this is what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to find some research. I'm going to look up a bunch of articles, and I'm going to highlight and I'm going to annotate specifically the parts about genocide that prove that his statement is false. And I asked them if they could send me credible sources, from like scholarly journals and things like that, so that I knew I wasn't just getting things off Wikipedia. Because like I said, you have to come in ready.
Yeah, credible primary, or as close to primary sources as you can get.
And as many as you can get. So I had about 6 or 7, and they were 3 to 4, 7 to 10 pages a piece, and I went through and I read them all, and I highlighted and I annotated, and then I did extra research on top of that. There was a film I watched called The Canary Effect that can be found on YouTube. It's extremely helpful, and I put some of those annotations on the side. And I went back to class on Friday, and he was talking about in the beginning of class, and this is a 50-minute class,
Yes.
so it goes by very quickly.
Yes.
So the first part, he's talking about the Iroquois Confederacy, and I'm like, okay, I've never been taught this in school before. This is my first time being formally educated about this. I've read things about it on my own, but this is the first time I'm hearing about it in a classroom.
Paying for.
Yes,
The
paying
lesson.
for the lesson.
Yes.
Yes. And so the professor's saying the Iroquois Confederacy was made of these Finger Lake tribes over here, and he was talking about how, contrary to popular belief, Native American people had free and full agency over the lands they'd occupied prior to first European contact. He was saying, contrary to popular belief, Native people were already fighting each other for the resources that the Europeans would eventually want, and that Native people were already requickening each other's children, which is to say they were kidnapping kids from other tribes and bringing them into their own and raising them to believe they were part of that tribe. So, and he was saying Europeans did not introduce warlike relationships between tribes. They just changed them. And these are words, I have a system for when I take notes. Anything that I ever put in quotes is a direct quote from the teacher's mouth.
The professor said, yeah.
Yeah. And so these are things that he was saying. And he mentioned Hiawatha and how he'd predicted the solar eclipse, which I mean is kind of a big deal.
Right.
He spends one sentence talking about that, which wasn't surprising at all. And the rest of it was very appropriative. It was very, revisional. Like, it's okay that the Europeans came and did this because the Native people were already doing it before they got here.
They just sped it up.
Yeah, basically. That's what he said.
The inevitability of the behavior.
Yes. Oh, and it's like, all right, I can see where this is going. So then he starts talking about European context for exploration. And this is about where things started to happen, I guess. He's talking about the Portuguese, and he's talking about how the Portuguese people at the beginning of this era were one of the most starved, poor, desolate people in Europe, and their population had been decimated by disease, and they'd lost much of their nobility because of disease and things like that. So they had the opportunity to rise in power. And he said, while other cultures and other men were learning to steal, the Portuguese learned how to make money through trade. And so they traveled down the coast of Africa and around the African peninsula, and they went up the other side and into the Asias, and that they made friends among the people that they encountered. And not once in this entire time that he's talking about this, he did not ever say that the reason that they left Europe was to participate in the Africa diaspora. He didn't say anything about their participation in the very active bloody slave trade.
Yep.
He said nothing. He said they had made friends, and this was ridiculous to me because it's not a secret anymore.
Didn't the Portuguese invent the caravel, that giant, didn't they invent the first giant, biggest, long
torture machine,
capability ship? So yeah, they just
Yeah.
high-fived. They just high-fived along the coast.
Yeah, pretty much. And then he spent 15 minutes talking about the lateen sail, which is the sailboat. It's the sail on the boat. And he's talking about the mechanics and the science behind it, and he's talking about how innovative it is and how brave and courageous these men were for their ambition to want to go explore these new places. And I put my hand up and I said, I don't think it's fair to talk about the Portuguese people like they were just brave and poor and ambitious. Why didn't you talk about their active participation in slave trade? And their heads whip around and look at me like, oh my God, what's she doing?
Stop giving us more homework.
Probably. And I'm just like, I'm serious. This is a legitimate question. Why are you skipping over this part? And he didn't really have anything to say about that. And he just looks at me, and I said, you don't mention anything about the fact that these men gained that wealth and power by raping the lands and the people that they encountered. You don't mention anything about that. Why is that?
And children.
And children. Everybody. The land, the animals, the plants, the people, the entire continent, anything living on that, just annihilated. And he didn't mention any of it. And
Well,
I
did he
asked him
mention
why.
the doctrine and discovery that gave people that right?
Oh.
That if the land wasn't being used in that certain way, or these people weren't up to a certain level of technology, then they were able, given the right to, take over those lands, educate or decimate those people.
He didn't mention any of
Oh,
that.
okay, no big deal.
No, nothing about.
But let me stop you real quick. It's like for some reason, when you get to university, you expect a deeper, more truthful, biased form of education. You know, when I was at Sac State, I put my head down. I was like, I don't want to be the Chiitani, okay, of the bunch. And I have another story about me being broken down in the education system. But you expect a truthful, you're paying thousands of dollars
Literally.
a semester to get what you assume is the truth. So it's freaking me out right now because you're one 50-minute class. He probably has like how many classes?
In a semester.
Okay, of how many students, of how many years he's been there spoon feeding this. I don't want to say ignorant because ignorant you can dismiss in a way. Oh, he didn't know he's ignorant. This seems like
Dogma.
malicious sugarcoating over
It's revisionist history.
dismissive
Yes.
revisionist I
And
learned a word.
erasive. Very
This is
much
nuts.
so. It is ridiculous because, like you said, at Sac State itself, I've had other friends of mine who specifically said that they had teachers. One of my friends, when they were talking about slavery here in America, one of their teachers said, you know, slavery was a hard time for black people. And that is what they said about it. And they said it's kind of like when you have finals week and you're really stressed out and you're worried about things.
Just having a bad day.
Yeah, having a bad day. That's
week
how
even.
the entire Africa diaspora and about the deep history of slavery, it was a hard time for black people. Are you kidding me? And there was another friend of mine who was talking about how his teacher had denied the Cambodian genocide and failed to mention that part in their textbooks and had, you know, said if you don't like it, you can get out too. So it's not just this professor even at this university. And you take this and you multiply it by how many American people are in America today, by the millions, and then you go back to how long this country's been established for, and you really look at how many people have been very actively and purposefully brainwashed by this system.
But like you said, okay, these people are content with their power. They don't want to listen. So this system is pumping out more people. Well, I have a bachelor's in this degree, so you're wrong because my professor said it was just a bad day and you guys were doing it anyways,
Yep.
you know? So you're putting more of that crappy power, just spreading it.
Absolutely. And even worse with that, like how you were saying, while this went down, and when I asked him about genocide, once we got there was a student in the classroom who was about 2 chairs up and then 2 chairs to the right of me, pretty close. He turns around and he says to me, teacher said that's not what happened. He said it was an accident.
My mama says that.
Pretty much. My mom told me. Yeah. And he believed it, man. He was mad at me. And he was like, it was an accident. Like, and it's just like this. And I pointed to him and I said, this is exactly why you cannot be teaching your classes this way, is because you have kids who are doing this. Because if you don't have a native kid in the class, if you don't have somebody who's going to really stand up and care about something like this, the entire class is going to accept what you have to say. And that's what you just pushed on to the next generation of people going out there. And if you don't think that's a big deal, you are not the only one doing it. And he absolutely couldn't handle it. And he told me, if you don't like it, you can get out. And I said, all right. And on my way out, I can give you these articles I looked up for you. Educate yourself. Educate the class. If you want to read these, here they are for you too. And then he says, genocide isn't what happened. I said, oh, genocide. Definition of genocide here as defined by the United Nations. Article A, the purposeful killing of another group. B, causing serious bodily harm or injury to members of the group. And at that point, he said, that's enough. Stop. And I said, why? Why? Because you know it's true? Is that? And then he said, class, you know what? I'm sorry. We'll meet again next time. And it was just like, oh, all right. So this is what you say to the class. And when I ask you to quantify it with your academic research, to tell me factually why you are choosing to why you're choosing to teach the history class in this way, once you're proved wrong, you're just going to shut down the class. Is that how this education system works? Is that why I'm paying how many thousands of dollars to this university a semester for this kind of stuff? And then and he called me a hijacker. Within 5 minutes of this, I don't even know what to call it.
Dialogue?
It wasn't dialogue, sure.
Exchange.
Yeah, let's say exchange. He says, You know what? I'm really starting to resent you being in my class, and you've hijacked the last part of my lecture, and I'm really not appreciating it. And I said, well, I don't appreciate you erasing history, sir. And it was it's frustrating, to say the least.
No, but what happened? What happened after that? Did you just throw your books at the wall and?
No, he dismissed the class after I started reading the United Nations definition of genocide. He dismissed the class. So I gathered my things and I went up to him after, and he was like, I got nothing to say.
Who?
And I go up, and we've got like the teacher desk up at the front between us, and he says, I appreciate your argument. This is an argument I've heard many times before, and this is a claim that some people will make, and I told you I was happy to talk with you about it after class, but you made me look like I was some kind of bigoted, prejudiced racist when I was trying to give a lecture about the Portuguese context for exploration. I do not appreciate that. You completely ruined the last 10 minutes of my lecture. You hijacked my class, and I'm going to get you out of here. I'm evicting you from this classroom from this day on. I don't care what kind of scholarship you have. I don't care what your affiliation is with the university. I'm expelling you from this class, and I'm going to get you out of here. Just like that. There was no back and forth discussion. There was no academic freedom on my part. It was like, you know what? You're saying something that I don't want to hear. You're going to get out. You're going to leave. And I said, all right, if that's what you're going to do, you're going to do that. But you need to understand that you need to tell people the truth, and that's the reason I'm here. And I said to him, I was like, look around you. Who else do you see here fighting you for the truth? I was like, you really think other people care? Look around you. Who's here? It's the one Native student you have in your class. If I wasn't here, there wouldn't be anybody saying anything about it. And that's the whole point of erasive history, is that the marginalized people eventually put their heads down. They stop fighting. But once we don't, it's a problem. You're a hijacker. You're a troublemaker. You're disrespectful. And it was just on all levels of crazy, because he also raised his voice at me.
Oh, no, he didn't.
Oh, girl, yes, he did. He used his man voice at me. He deepened it, and he was pointing his finger at me. Oh, no, yes, he was. It was ridiculous. It was like, why are you so scared?
Yeah.
Why are you so defensive? And it actually turns out that after all of this blew up, former students of his emailed me and said that they'd had this problem with him before on this same issue, that they disputed Native American genocide, and he either dismissed the class early or told them if they don't like it, they can get out, or said we can talk about it privately. And a lot of people have dropped his course because they just couldn't handle
Can we say his name? We should say his name.
Professor Maury Wiseman.
And then is there like Professor Grader? And do that.
Rate
Give him
my
an
professor.
R for racist.
Oh, he was. I honestly, I can't. It's really hard. My hands were shaking.
Well, it's hard to articulate this frustration.
Yes.
And like you said, so many levels. So how do you put words into where you're being lied to, you're being disrespected,
Mm-hmm.
they're messing with your people, your ancestors, you're moving for you just
Yes.
there are no words for that feeling.
And meanwhile, there are kids around me in the classroom whispering, not saying it to me, but they're calling me. I can hear somebody say, "This crazy bitch." I can see this is ridiculous. I hear people saying this about me, and it was like, this is exactly, you are all literally what's wrong with the world. Like, this professor, you're supposed to be somebody in a position of power to teach us to search for the integrity of the truth.
Yes.
And instead, you're being selective, factually selective, and you're twisting this in your own way. How many students have you... And another point was made that Sacramento State University produces the highest number of teachers. I don't know if that's in the state or in the country or in the CSU system, but Sac State produces a high number of educators. And if this is the kind of education that people are being received, or people are being given, how are we supposed to say that we are maintaining our academic freedom, that we are a rigorous university, if we have professors who are teaching things like this, and if you have other professors on the campus who are saying slavery was a hard time for Black people, or they deny Cambodian genocide, and just all these other marginalized students who make complaints and say this is not okay, but the university will not actively chooses to not do anything about it.
But you're supposed to welcome conversation. You're an educator.
Yes.
So show me this. Oh, wow. Okay. You know what I mean? But again, like you said, he was so afraid and intense and just hunkered down.
So defensive.
Well, check this out. Circa 1996, Santa Rosa High School. A rabble-rousing young mischief got a hold of Howard Zinn's People's Guide to the United States.
Yes.
I walked into my history class. I got it on a Thursday, went to class Monday. Teacher started talking. I stood up. I said, I'm taking over this class. And I grabbed the dry erase thing out of his hand. And I started talking about Kit Carson. And I started breaking it down. I wouldn't give it back. He was getting fussy. But he sat down, let me have it. Got all the way up to the principal's office. So I don't remember Dad's perspective, but basically, since I had a B in the class, they gave me my B and told me to go away. Mm-hmm. I was pumped. I don't have to go free period. Let's go smoke in the bathroom. You know, in my head, I was pumped. But by the time I got to Sac State, I shut down. In history class, I just vomited up papers to get my C, to get the degree, and to get out of there. I broke down. I was so... didn't want to stand up, didn't want to this. I was broken down. I got punished for shining a light on some different truths, and it broke me. And it broke me. I don't want to fight back. We're taught, our parents teach us to go to school and to listen to our teacher and learn. Mm-hmm. And so I stood up against that, and nobody liked it.
Yeah.
I think this, go ahead.
Sorry. It's humiliating because you're not just... you're with people you know. Yeah. They talk about peer pressure in school all the time. Okay, well, what about you being in a room of 40 people that you know are not going to have your back and think that you're stupid and think that you're a troublemaker and they think that you're
freaking
crazy.
Out over nothing.
Yeah, or they think that you're dumb. All these different judgments that normal people are afraid of anyway.
Yep.
But to know that something is wrong, something is horribly wrong, but you know that if you stand up, you are going to be in the wrong, that you're the one that's going to be punished. How are you supposed to handle that? How are you supposed to stand up, and how are you supposed to have respect towards a teacher who is putting you in this situation and absolutely refuses to hear your side of the story? How else are we supposed to handle this?
Respect is earned, it sounds like. And
Absolutely.
It doesn't sound like you were given that.
Definitely not. And this whole incident could have gone totally differently if he would have even just said, I can see we're at an impasse. We have differences of opinion. Now, I understand where you're coming from. I can understand why you feel this way. I understand your perspective, and you are allowed to have that. But we are in class, and we are not going to agree on this, and I respectfully request that we can agree to disagree, or we can come back to this later. Or we can talk after class and maybe come to some sort of middle ground. If there was any kind of professional conduct used, any kind of level of respect, any kind of, all right, I see where you're coming from. I really am not a troublemaker. I love class. I love school. I'm a nerd. I don't go to school to be disrespectful. My mom's a teacher. I have seen her side, and I've grown up with her always defending the teacher. So teachers are really, truly some of my favorite people. And when I go to school, she makes fun of me because I've always make friends with the teachers before I make friends with anybody else. So it's like, I'm not the troublemaker that you need to be worried about. I'm on your side. I'm trying to help the classroom here.
Educate.
Yes, and that's the whole reason that we're here, and I didn't do it, I felt, in a disrespectful way. I did it in an objective. These are the facts, and you only talked about these ones here, and you used some personal bias. You used the words brave, you used the words ambitious, you used the words courageous, you used these words in this way and this words in this context. Why did you do so? And it was like, you know what? That's enough. And he got so defensive, and it was so bam, 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 you're out of the class.
And now you're the leper, shunned from the rest of the group. You know what I mean? That everybody's afraid to talk to or touch because they might get some truth disease. Mm-hmm. What happens if they start questioning their reality? Oh, no.
Oh, God, anything but that. And even after, when the professor walked out of the classroom, there was a student out there, and I heard him say, Professor, you know what? I'm so sorry. She's completely wrong. And that was just the cherry on top of everything.
Was there a in the background.
You know what?
kissing
I
his
think
butt.
I did
Yeah.
hear that.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. Just
Yeah.
a big old
Nose
fat.
was real brown after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get that A.
Well, Martina, what's your perspective on this? A, as a mother, and B, as an educator,
And C as an Indian.
and C, as an Indian,
As an
and
Indian
D,
woman.
as a woman.
Well, obviously,
You've raised quite the hellion.
I did. I'm responsible for this girl.
Yay.
I think that one of the things that we've come to realize in California is even when she was young, she's very passionate about being Indian. I mean, we all are. And I was raised on the reservation. I come from the boarding school, the last part of the boarding school crap that was put on us. So I've always taught, I have two girls, so I've always taught them to be really proud of who they are. And they're going to be different when you send them to school. You're sending them, and there's not going to be other natives in the classroom. So I remember when she was in 4th grade and we had to go do mission projects. And I was sitting there going, are you serious? And in Arizona, I don't remember ever doing a mission project, but in California, they're required in 4th grade. And I was sitting there going, why would you want to do a mission project? This is where a lot of Californian natives died. I mean, this is prison. This is horrible, horrible events happened here. So, but we, did the respectful, or I guess that's the word. We went down to Santa Rosa. We went to the mission. And the entire time we're walking around the mission, and it was a small, and it was a small mission, and it had been remodeled,
Renovated.
renovated, and there's all this ground, and it's concrete, and I just kept telling Tani, Tani, where are they all buried? Because
They're here.
they're here. And this is they're just covering it all up.
Literally.
I mean, literally, you've covered up the natives. And it's for a native person to go somewhere like that. It was really hard for me. And I mean, you feel it. It's sadness and there's suffering but the teachers and the curriculum, I mean, they don't care. They think this was a wonderful thing that happened, that the Christians brought wonderful things to the Indians here, and
They think Sarah was a saint.
Yes, so from that perspective and from that moment on, Tani came home and she always fought the fight. She would, if things were said that were not true in the classroom, she would always be the one to correct it. And I would always be called, and I would always have to defend her because I know that she was right. And as a teacher, I do know how much work it takes to be a teacher. I know all the extra hours you have to put in. So I would always take the teacher's side, and I would have my girls always defend their positions. But in terms of Native history, anything that comes out of a teacher's mouth where they think they know our story and they don't, that's when I give full authority to her to correct them, because nobody knows your history like you do, and nobody can say that's not right or this. I mean, I was a substitute teacher in Roseville, and I was substituting in 3rd grade classroom, and the curriculum, and they were working on Navajo housing or Navajo cultural things, and I'm Navajo. I walk in and I'm like, oh, cool, I'm Navajo. And they're like, no, it's called Navajo. And I'm like, no, it's Navajo. And I'm arguing with, 3rd graders over how to pronounce. And then they say, well, it's Dine. And I'm like, no, it's Dene. And finally, and then the last thing was like, and Navajos live in teepees. And I'm standing there going, are you serious? So I go look at the history book, and then I sit the whole class down and I say, okay, I'm not arguing with you anymore, but I said, I'm Navajo. That J is pronounced like an H. I said, I'm Navajo. Don't argue with me. And like, we don't live in teepees, and we don't, and we're called Dene. There's a little mark over the E. And to have to constantly go through that, I mean, that's just a way of life for us. And so I'm very proud of Tani for taking the stand that she did, because genocide it's what happened. It's the truth. And then for him to say that, and even when we did talk to the president, people have kind of assumed that she's there on a Native scholarship because Native people have money or get money from the government. Well, my husband and I are paying for her to go to school there, so we don't like that assumption that she's there getting a free education from somebody.
Or some affirmative action hire.
But if they're out there, we would like them too.
But my question is too, again, okay, this isn't Sacramento. This is Western. Here in this area, you were paid to kill Native Americans. You were paid. It was for profit. So how does that not fit into genocide? So even if you just look at a chunk of California history, genocide. So the term can be used because you were paid. You were encouraged.
Yes.
That to war over things and this and that.
Well,
Thank you.
But what's up with being the only Indian kid everywhere? Like, I swear,
goodness.
it's like, I always feel isolated, or people come to say, like, they sit next to you, tell me about your people. And I don't, an oddity are not part of when my blood, my ancestors were here.
Yeah.
So why am I the one singled out or that doesn't seem to get it's again, I broke down. I just started shutting down, and that sucks.
Because you feel like you're made to feel like you're exotic in your own homelands.
Yes.
And it's like, no, I'm from here. This is where we come from. Literally, we were here from millennia before any of this happened, even like 300 years ago. And that's something so annoying that I get a lot about being the only one, is that, I mean, that was a really long time ago. I mean, why are you still upset about it? And I get people who say, I've had people who say, like, when they're like, oh, you're Indian. Wait, I thought you were all, didn't you all die? I thought you were all dead. I didn't know there were Indians left. And it's literally, it's just a knife in the stomach. It's just like how, we're talking about breaking down. It is so hard to not break down. And if it's not breaking down, it's really hard not to go around and throwing things everywhere and just saying, I want to move to Antarctica and I don't want to do this anymore, because there will always be more people, more ignorant people than there will be people who want to fight with you and who know why you're fighting. And it's like when we're here like this, we're together and we know. But when I go back to school and I'm in a classroom, I'm alone. And I know that. And I've known that since kindergarten, when I first wore my moccasins to school and people made fun of me for my weird shoes. But I wore them anyway, because that's who I am. And that's what we need to, when we're teaching our kids, to be inclusive. But the second you see anything out of the norm, the second a teacher hears something that he doesn't like or that he doesn't want to hear, it's your fault. You get out. And to hear that over the course of your whole life, to be told, your truth doesn't matter, your people's history doesn't matter. The president actually told my family and I, while we were in there, he was discounting the oral tradition of storytelling, which is something so intrinsic to so many Indian cultures. Storytelling, he said, that doesn't really count.
We didn't have a written culture until you got here, so we don't have like 1,000 years of scribes and scrolls. That's what we did. We told stories. We sang stories. We shared verbally.
And they survived. And there would be more of them around today if you didn't kill everybody. If there were more than just 2% of us here left today, it's really heavy stuff. And it's hard to know when to pick it up and when to put it down. because you feel like you never really put it down.
So really, the president just kind of dismissed it?
Oh, yeah.
I assumed once you guys got up top, it'd be like, let's take a look at this system.
Oh, well, no, the president, he was initially very genuine in wanting to hear my side of the story. Like, all right, I'm sorry this happened to you. What happened? Tell me the truth. And it was just him. So I was like, okay. But then effectively just went on to tell us that his hands were tied and that the teacher's backed by the union, the teachers union, and that he can't really do anything about it. And it was like, okay, you can't do anything or you don't want to do anything. Because I had submitted to the provost an official written letter of complaint, and we'd asked her multiple times, is this sufficient documentation for complaint? Is this all you need? Do I need to write anything else, anything more for the investigation, for anything regarding this subject? Anything at all? Is this it? And she told us, this is okay. This letter is enough. This is all we need. This letter is enough. And then I get a letter about 2 weeks later from the provost telling me that my letter is insufficient documentation for formal complaint because I did not provide litigation. I did not legally look up California State University Sacramento's teaching policies and highlight and point out specifically which laws he had broken. So they would not take, so my complaint was insufficient. And then the president later told us, in our final meeting, you're not going to like what I have to tell you here, but basically nothing's going to happen. But he said we did add a genocide minor and a Holocaust minor to the ethnic studies department. And that's another really frustrating thing, is that the university continually makes this an ethnic studies issue. And I will, or native studies issue. And it said, and I'm sitting here, no, university, this was an American history class. If you are going to add a genocide minor, you need to put it in American history because it was the United States government who committed genocide on these lands. And that's the truth that you're still failing to speak.
And it's big too because it's also a sociological issue.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
it's also a scientific issue. It's also a real estate issue. It's also a governance issue. There's all types of pieces here just to put us in this little box again. So eventually we'll just kind of go away and forget about it. It's not really relevant. I can see how some subjects, you know, I don't care about some subjects that I had to go endure. I just did it, got my grade. But for Native people, it seems this one carries a lot more clout and pardon my French, but we're damn mad about it.
Well, the thing too was that the president actually said that if a genocide needed to be taught, he would put it in creative writing department.
Oh, yeah.
That was the
Like,
first
okay,
thing he said.
I'm
in
getting
the first
goosebumps,
meeting.
but they're from anger. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a weird physiological
Yes.
reaction. So
Yeah, because when I was in the classroom and I knew that I was going to have to say something, my palms were sweaty. I had adrenaline all through my body. I had chills. My heart was going. My breathing was, you know, my body knew what was coming. And it was scary because I really didn't expect him to act that way. I did not have I didn't go into this thinking that it really was going to be a fight.
because in our culture, songs, prayers, ceremony are that way to get it and put it somewhere else that we don't carry it around. But now those outlets that we're raised with and have been going on for generations are no longer acceptable
Yeah.
forms. You know, you talking about a bubble, you're with your bubble. I'm off of Indigenous Peoples Weekend and a powwow weekend. So I am so proud and so pumped, and I leave that bubble and my heart breaks.
Yep.
You know, because when you're in that bubble, when you're around the Indigenous people and the medicine's there and the music's there and everybody's just being, there's a magic to it.
Yeah.
There's I'm home.
Yes.
And then they burst the bubble and I'm the oddity, I'm the weirdo,
you're the angry one.
I'm mad about something.
But you know, I tell Tani that you have to live in that world. You have to get your education. You have to learn how to deal with the people out there. But for us, our home is our safe place. There's always someplace safe to go. And like the powwows and the culture, and like my home, which is in Arizona, when we go there, that's your safety. And that's what we always have. So even if it's just on one more Native person, and I've taught her that even if you don't see another Native person, you have your prayers. You have to have your prayers. And you have to have that within you so you don't rely on other people to be there. So that's one of the aspects that other people can't take from you, because that's who you are, and that's part of you.
It's up.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm also very proud of, I think it was one of the universities here did article where they're in solidarity with Chiitani Johnson. And I appreciated that article so much because that group of Indian Club, the members in there, vowed that from, the example that Chiitani set, that they were going to start they were going to start standing up for untruths that were told. If somebody says something that wasn't true in the classroom, that they made a vow as a group that they would challenge them now, that they would stand up for the truth. And I think that's really valuable, because young people need to know that their voice matters, and that whether it takes Chiitani getting, reprimanded in this harsh way, which as a mom, I will tell you, I did not like this man. And anyway, but to have influence over other young Native people, that they need to talk up and they need to defend the Native values themselves, and that they need to have people tell the truth about what happened with history, not to sugarcoat it anymore, because that's done, it's over. But people need to tell the truth.
I liked what Roberto Garcia used to say about stolen land. He says, after 500 years of stolen land, what do you call it? You call it stolen land.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't change. It's still, something to contend with and such. So,
Well, Chiitani, we have a few minutes left. Is there anything you want to say? A website? You got a blog? You can whisper. We can edit.
Okay.
And how can people help you in this? And what can we do as a community of listeners? How can we have your back, girl?
You could call the university. You could tell them that you're upset about the way that the university handled this, about the way that the educator handled this, and you can tell them that this is unacceptable. Not only is genocide a fact, but teaching that it is not, that's wrong. And then to throw out a student for standing up for the truth, that is wrong. As Native people, I really think that we are starting to come up. Even on Twitter, and that sounds initially to people that sounds ridiculous, but I've met Native people through Twitter, and I've talked with Native people through Twitter, and we've connected, and we have so many of the same stories of being silenced or being outcasted or ostracized or being told that we're the weird ones, or when this time of year comes around and everybody's learning about Thanksgiving, how that feels. And but in regards to this issue, if you are a student in a class and you know that your teacher is telling lies or telling a biased version of history or is revising history or is being erasive of history, you as a person on this earth have the right to ask for the truth. You have a right as a person to say, this is wrong and this is why. And we are allowed as students academic freedom. And we should be allowed to expect a higher standard of learning from our teachers. It is 2015.
Oh.
What on earth is it that our schools have to lose from telling the truth about genocide? That isn't enough? It really isn't that enough? Hasn't there been enough taken? We're 2% of the population. The truth at the very minimum. We deserve that. And if you are in a classroom like this, and this is something that happens to you, you stand up. Because as heartbreaking as it is to say this, there are literally millions of our ancestors who died for us to be able to sit here and breathe freely and not be attacked every day that we go out as Indian people. The fact that we can live in houses, the fact that we have cars, the fact that we're safe, those did not come free. And so because we have these voices, because we have this freedom that we do, because we do have some, you need to use that, and you need to go back and fight for your people the way that they couldn't 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 40 years ago in the boarding school systems. They couldn't do it, but now you can. And that's what you're here to do.
Oh.
And again, back to this social media, honey, we are scattered to the winds. Okay, as Native people, we're scattered to the winds. So the social media, this internet is really gluing us back together and united. You know, it takes a million voices to tell a story, you know, so we are kind of united now and able to interact with such ease and find each other through this. So what's your Twitter, Facebook, Instagrams?
Okay. So my Twitter, it's at Chiitani. So it's ChiiTaani. Interesting about Facebook, I don't have a Facebook anymore. I used to, but Facebook asked me to confirm my identity.
Weird.
Yeah, and it asked me to provide some sort of government ID. It asked me for my it gave me a list of things that I could submit to confirm that my name was really Chiitani Ba Johnson.
Okay, that's a whole nother racist conversation for another day.
And this happened after this teacher thing blew up. I swear to you, it happened after that.
This is like X-Files, but like Red Files. This is the N Files.
There is a thing though that there's a script writing competition at my school, and I'm a writer. So I would like, if I could, to write something kind of like the movie Freedom Writers, how they have a book of these stories of these kids in a classroom and how it is growing up for them. If I could, if there are Native people out there and you've had this kind of experience and you want that story told, I want to take those stories and I want to put them in the script, and I want to make it I want to turn it into theater art, because what I want to do is I want to make movies. I'm an actress, I'm a dancer, I'm a writer, and this is what I want to do. And with my voice, I want to put out the truth about Native people. I want to share that Native perspective, but it's not just about me. And it's going to be so much stronger if there are more stories. And I value them, and I need them. I need to know that there are other of me like there, because I know you are all out there. I know you can hear me. If there's a story like this that happened to you and you want that told, my Twitter, that's my handle, at me, send me a tweet, let me know, and we can arrange something, because this is something that needs to be told. And I think it would be really exciting for us to come together in this way. And this is the beginning of it. This is just the beginning.
You hear that, elders? This is the beginning of it.
Martina, what have we done?
I don't know.
It's starting. It's happening.
I got those goosebumps again, but this time they're like erotic. They're not anger ones.
Thank you for sharing that from the heart.
Thank you.
It was powerful. It was relevant. And again, I'll say again, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
For coming forward like that. I'm proud of you too, Jennifer.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
thank
Thanks for
doing
like
that.
the leftover on that one.
Well,
you're
you are.
amazing
That
and
was-
articulate and beautiful. I'm so glad you're here.
No,
Love you too, kid. Anyways,
I like
keep up the fight. I know you're gonna make it.
Any last words, Mom?
No, I want
Yes.
I want to thank all the people who've been very supportive
Yes.
of Chiitani Ba.
Yes.
We've gotten a lot of emails. We've gotten a lot of. I have a Facebook, and so I keep up with people who are in support of what she's doing. So I appreciate that. I appreciate
I do too.
Indian Country Today for breaking the
Yes,
story.
Thank you, Vince.
And yes, and then I want to thank Cindy Lamar for always being our support person.
Yes, Cindy Lamar.
And I mean, there's just so many people who, our family and our friends who have been supportive. And so I want to thank everybody
I do too.
except for President Nelson. You didn't do
And
enough.
Professor Mari Wiseman.
Yeah,
Oh.
boo Mari Wiseman.
Yes.
And boo Facebook for the whole. Your name's not wide enough. You can't participate in this network.
I actually was told that they're targeting Native people and activists and Native activists specifically and shutting them down because that's a way a lot of people communicate with their their cohorts.
Tag and share, baby.
You're not even an activist. You're just like being a student and don't take crap.
Maybe. Yeah.
They call
All
it
right.
activism now.
They call it activism
okay.
now. Yeah, I guess.
Well,
So-
keep in touch. Thank you so much
Yes.
for being here.
Thank you for having us here. This was wonderful. And like my mom said, to all those people who've been in support, there's been a lot of emails. I appreciate every single one of them because I really didn't know for a second there if I did the right thing or not. But I know now. There's a lot of people standing with me, and I'm standing with y'all too. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for having us on the show.
Okay.
Hashtag truth.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.